Hi, my name is Anna Shedletsky, and I'm CEO and founder of a company called Instrumental. I'm so excited to be here today at APEI to talk with audio engineering professionals like yourselves about how you can leverage manufacturing technology and AI to find and fix issues in development with your audio systems, as well as to accelerate continuous improvement in production. So let's dive right in. In today's presentation, I'm going to walk through a little bit about Instrumental. I'm going to talk about some specific audio use cases, and then I'm actually going to give a little bit of a demo so you can see kind of how some of this AI in action can really help you in your day-to-day work. So let's dive right in. Instrumental works with some of the world's most admired brands across the electronics ecosystem, but especially some that are admired for their audio products, including Bose, Poly, Motorola, and others. We have deep partnerships with manufacturers around the globe, including contract manufacturers and JDMs. We operate with them. We sell directly to the brands, but we operate in partnership with the contract manufacturers. So we might have been in factories that you're familiar with working with as well. The kind of core reason for why I founded Instrumental is because that meeting development and production KPIs is getting harder over time, not easier. There's a couple of reasons for this, but one of them is that our products are just getting more complex. And so as a result, we're trying to do more and generally in less time. So rushed MPIs, or new product introductions and development phases, are really leading teams to get to not as high product maturity as they might have in the past. And that creates a lot of urgency in the development process to find as many issues as possible to reduce the impact in the field on customers when you start production. So you get to the highest level of product maturity possible. And then we're also operating in a world where online reviews and very vocal customers can have a huge impact on sales figures. So even 1-star difference on Amazon between a 5-star and a 4-star product can result in 50% difference in sales. So it's really important that every single one of those units you ship out is really your best work. As part of this, I realized that ultimately there's a lot of data that's being collected and everybody knows it's valuable, but very few companies are actually getting a lot of value out of their product manufacturing data. Instrumental enables teams to actually use this data to drive core operational metrics like yield, reduce rework and scrap, and actually improve quality and reduce return rates while shipping great products. We ultimately do that by getting data from the silos that is locked in across your supply chain. So a typical supply chain will have many upstream suppliers, as well as a main final assembly factory. And then of course, don't forget about downstream with refurbs and returns as well. But all of that data is often siloed into each one of these different facilities. It's locked away. So what Instrumental does is that we aggregate your product data into a complete digital thread. We're organizing it by serial number, so you get full traceability down to the unit level. And we're making this available real time in a secure and managed cloud. So you don't need to have an in-house IT team or data science team to actually get at this data. We connect that thread directly to your people and systems. So at the basic level, that's enabling engineers on your team like yourselves to actually be able to leverage this data, get access to it. It's also connecting back into MES or quality management systems you might have built, or other collaboration or business intelligence tools that your company already uses. We don't just stop with the basic data coming off the testers. Instrumental's kind of special piece here is that we actually enrich this data with images of every unit and major subcomponent. The reason being is that images are really valuable for failure analysis and actually root causing problems. And our whole reason for being is to identify issues in test data and enable our customers to root cause those problems really quickly so they can actually continuously improve their products, whether that's in development or production. We take these images from either existing AOI cameras that you have on your line, automation equipment on the line, or if you don't have anything, we have Instrumental drop-in image stations that enable you to get started within days. Our AI then analyzes the terabytes of data that you're collecting from your testers and these images, so you don't have to. We're helping our customers actually identify defects on the line and figure out exactly where they came from and eliminate those defects at the source. Enabling this immediate failure analysis enables teams to go faster, and it streamlines communications across your team, your suppliers, and your factory partners. And this ultimately accelerates timelines, taking days or even weeks out of the development process, or the time period between when you identify a failure and when you have a fix on the line. Our AI does the heavy lifting so that you can do the engineering. We find every issue faster, earlier, by using unsupervised AI to actually highlight this. And I will show you this in the demo so you can see what that means. We accelerate failure analysis by enabling teams to actually, once they have identified defective units, to find more units that look like that one, to understand the full scope of the issue. So they know if it's a onesie, twosie failure or systemic failure. And then we also have tools that enable you to actually find potential root causes using the AI. So if you have a set of functional failures, we'll be able to automatically, in an unsupervised way, suggest potential related anomalies in the images. You'll see this as well in the demo. Really Instrumental is about getting actionable insights and data to the right people in real time, which is how they need to operate on it to do their jobs. So a lot of systems or technology that's existed before has been really targeted, perhaps at the operator level, for example, where you might have a vision inspection system that does pass fail, so the operator is able to immediately get a result back about whether their work was good or not. But this data is often not saved and not distributed to others that can make value out of it. And it's only limited to images, but there's a lot more to manufacturing data than just the images. So Instrumental essentially provides value to the full team, whether that's the operator still getting the table stakes of pass-fail results, quality engineering, where they're interested in what the Pareto and breakdown of top defects are so that they can prioritize their resources accordingly to attack the biggest problems. The product design and mechanical engineering team that's interested in doing failure analysis and actually correlating functional failures to actual root causes. And then, of course, executives who really just want to understand the dashboard and do risk management. So what's going on with this program? How can I most effectively help? And how concerned should I be about hitting our targets for either the build date or throughput and yield? So I'd love to walk through a couple of use cases that are very specific to audio engineering professionals like yourselves. Our products are used broadly across the engineering landscape, the electronics landscape. And we do work on products that are very high volume. We also work on products that are very low volume. So that full gamut is possible for us. We've worked on mobile phones. We've worked on motorcycles. We've worked on washing machines. We've worked on aircraft lights. So, the volume and cost and price point of these vary wildly, but the core unifying factor is that quality matters to the brand that's building the product. And when quality matters, having better data is the way to get there. So let's talk through some. This first use case is actually from a $30 billion plus defense and communications leader. We're not able to share the name or their data, but we are able to tell a little bit of their story. So they make a radio product for a first responder. So think firefighters, police officers, those types of individuals. And specifically, they had a radio that had kind of unsolvable systemic issues that were impacting their yield at multiple percentage points for years. It was a complex problem. This is a smart team. They were trying to solve this problem, but it was clearly related to the combination of multiple pieces in the product and the stack ups involved with those. So it was a very difficult problem to solve. Ultimately, they were about to cancel the program, but worked with Instrumental to grab the last 250 units off the line to do some inspection to see if we could help them actually root cause the problem of this multiple percentage point issue that they had been trying to root cause for 5 years. So what we were able to do is actually capture 250 units worth of images from the line as they were getting assembled, as well as functional test data from the area of the line, which in this case, this is a speaker this is actually a microphone issue that was causing the yield problem. and pull that data into the instrumental system. So we're looking at test data, and we actually had multiple images. So we had images of the microphone stack up, including any seals or gaskets. We also had images that happened to show core and cavity numbers for molded parts that were around the microphone. And ultimately, in about 6 hours of analysis, the team, this again, their first time using Instrumental, were able to complete 2 months worth of correlation studies by quickly eliminating root causes off their fishbone diagram using Instrumental's data. They were able to see that there's actually some relationship between combinations of cavity numbers and performance, which led them down a path to potentially root cause this issue. And the director of operations at this company described this experience as synergy, really bringing functional visual data together, and the images is greater than the two individual parts of those data separately. And this is something that Instrumental is the only product on the market that helps customers actually bring this full different types of data together to solve specifically manufacturing problems in a very targeted way. The next example is from a Fortune 10 electronics company. They were building a speaker module for a mobile device. And so essentially they were interested in the speaker coil. This of course is representative graphics and not customer data, but they had a speaker coil similar to this that was mounted to a diaphragm that had the speaker wires coming off of it that needed to then get tied into the rest of the module. And what they found is that actually the audio performance of the speaker was highly dependent on how these wires came off and exactly what shape they had. And this was creating a significant yield issue for the customer where they weren't even able to screen the units that came off in looking one way versus another way. They were using human operators to do screening, and they had previously tried to use Keyence to build computer vision rules to screen what an appropriate path for this wire is. So, and in kind of a dramatized view, let's say this is nominal. You have a wire that takes a certain shape, and then there's a glue bead that's kind of holding that wire coming off the coil. And so this is what nominal is supposed to look like. So a typical failure might potentially have a slightly different shape. That's going to affect the suspension for this particular diaphragm. Maybe the glue is the same size or not. And these were failures that they were able to identify with human operators and with the Keyence computer vision system. However, when they used Instrumental on the data set, Instrumental was able to identify that actually the human inspectors were escaping over 80% of true defects. And we discovered within the first 500 example parts, multiple new failure modes that weren't even on the inspection criteria list that were actually problems. So some examples were, we found the AI was able to find in an unsupervised way wires that had extra kinks or coils in them. We found extra deposits of glue that were not caught by either the humans or the conventional vision systems, essentially double deposit of glue, which again changed the stiffness of this area. And actually we also found units that had kind of stray parts going through, like additional wires going through in the area where the suspension is. And so this would be a problem as well. So we outperformed, in this case, this was just a test of only the visual inspection aspect of Instrumental, which is just a small piece, just the first piece of what Instrumental can do. And we were able to outperform Keyence in its fully tuned mode with less than 1 hour of training and eliminated 95% of inspection headcount for this particular issue. So this is an incredibly versatile system that can be used for a variety of different types of defects. So I'd love to actually transition over to sharing a little bit of a demo of Instrumental so you can get an idea of how this might work for your product. So let me do that. Alrighty. So here we are. We're in the Instrumental app. This is a software platform that's designed to help you to find and fix issues in manufacturing. It starts by collecting data from across your supply chain into a single digital thread. So here you can see we have data from potentially upstream suppliers. We're showing an enclosure vendor here, but this might be your speaker module vendor. FATP, final assembly, you can see that here. And then also in this particular project, we're collecting data from returns and refurb, which can be really helpful in understanding how your limits might be able to change upstream to reduce field escapes and return rate for the product. We're taking in a variety of different types of data, including images, whether they're from your cameras or ours, and functional test data. So you can actually dig in and actually see this data in the product itself in full resolution. And you can look from unit to unit as well. Bringing all this data together is going to allow your team to quickly find and fix issues so you can get your product to market faster. Having all the data in one place is really helpful on its own, but Instrumental provides the tools to get more value out of this data. And so our AI will help you to discover new issues proactively, solve for the root causes of those issues, and then monitor to make sure those issues are actually fixed. So let me start with discover. This is where our AI does what you would do. It looks over your product. You can see here all the different places. It's looking at all this data, and it learns what normal looks like and then highlights anything that it thinks is anomalous and weird to your team as a discovery here. By highlighting small issues that may require attention, you can proactively take action on it before it becomes a big one. So you can see a lot of different types of issues that it's finding. You can click in particular regions and see these issues as well. Here we're seeing some corrosion. We're also catching a ZIF connector that's not fully seated. Here there's some contamination. So there's a lot of interesting things that have been discovered. This is unsupervised learning, which means I've not done any training here. I've not told the algorithms what to look for. It's figured that out on its own. And that's based on essentially having an initial sample set of about 30 images, 30 units worth of data to start with, is when we can start being valuable. Now, when it comes to actually solving these problems, of course, you can go through anything that's been identified prior in Discover, but you can also dig into specific units or test failures. So since this is an audio audience, let's take a look at the microphone test for this particular product. This is a 3-dimensional camera, and it does have a microphone to actually capture audio. And we'll just look at this functional mic test. So here I'm actually able to see the pass-fail ratio for this particular test. And we're actually been dropped into our correlations and root cause tool that's trying to identify in an unsupervised way things that are related in this population of failures. So you have a population of failures of 12 units. What are things that are possibly related, possible root causes across the product to these failures? And we can see very high correlation here to contamination in the front mic, which this is a test that was prior set up, but you can also see that it was detected here in a test. Seems like there's some front mic issues here in a test that was not prior set up. And if you want to actually dig in and do failure analysis on a particular unit, you can do that here. So here I am in the actual unit that has this potential contamination in the mic port. And I can essentially do a little bit of a tear down here to remove that outer cover and look at the microphone boot. And I can see that there's actually contamination in this particular product. So this is actually helping me to get to root cause. It helped me identify a potential root cause and get to a root cause. So now I can actually share this information back and prevent this type of issue from happening in the future. Finally, our AI can actually help you to close the loop and to take action on these issues once you've understood the root cause. So our monitor tab, if you click here, is essentially a control center for all of the different tests that are running on the product. You can create dozens of tests by training the AI to understand the difference between passing and failing, drawing that threshold between what's good and what's bad so that you can make the decision, so that the AI can make the decisions that you would make if you were on the line. You can monitor these defects in the cloud or actually push the test live to the line. And what it means to be live on the line is that the operator will actually get a response. We'll do compute at the edge, and they'll actually get a response that says that this particular unit is a pass or fail, so they can actually react in real time. And so that's an option. You can also run things only on the cloud if you're in a kind of a monitoring mode. And finally, there's the ability to share all of this information with the people on your team that you're interested in collaborating with, whether that's your factory, your suppliers, your teammates globally distributed. That is how we're building these days. So you can communicate about specific issues, and you can also actually get a link to actually specifically create a report, a custom report for the product for this particular issue on demand, so that you can share this with your team and all be on the same page. Ultimately, when used instrumental, our software and AI should be like tripling your team. You'll be able to solve problems faster, continuously improve over time, and get your product out the door. So, heading back over to our presentation here, I just wanted to share that if you're interested in speaking with an expert or getting a customized demo, you can actually scan this QR code and type in your information, and we'll be happy to speak with you about how we can solve your biggest audio engineering challenges and identification of defects in those products. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm really looking forward to answering your questions in the live Q&A.